Trigger warning. This episode may contain content that could be distressing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the New Earth Studios podcast, Bring Your Truth with Alex Roseman. We'll be bringing on guests that will be bearing their soul, their transformational journey from the old earth to the new earth, bringing about the balance of duality and reshifting our perspective of how we see things, because in the new earth, it's all about love, it's all about inclusion, it's all about unity. So if this is something that you're interested in and you want to put your focus in unity, unification and love, this is a podcast for you. Thank you so much and I hope you enjoy the show. MagicKathi, welcome. Welcome to the New Earth.
Thank you for the invitation. Finally, I'm home. New Earth.
Exactly. And that was on our podcast yesterday. You were asking, what is the New Earth? And people can check it out. My stumbling attempt at describing this essence of what New Earth is about. But this is about you and you coming onto our platform. And, it's beautiful to have you here. And you've been to the New Earth Cafe before. Yes. And now this is the New Earth Studios combined with the New Earth Cafe. And whilst we're still figuring out what this all is, what is New Earth, what is this cafe, what is this studios, who are you, and what is this transformation that's taking place? And I love that your gift and your synchronicity of how you're helping people to align to their purpose, as we're going to share a little bit later about the synchronicities about my gene key and how it's all come up, even the name of the table, the number of the table of the synchronicities, and your gift at that, seeing the patterns and how that can help, I guess, elevate consciousness. And so before we unwrap that and go into the magic of what this is all about, I'd really love to know about you and how you got into this, what got you from the old earth into the new earth, and how do we help other people in this way, in this path, so that your story maybe you'd be able to relate to so many with your authenticity and your vulnerability, and that this is a safe space, being accepted, being loved. And usually when I ask a guest, where to start, we usually go to the beginning. So wherever the beginning is for you.
I can go straight to the beginning, which is something that I uncovered in plant medicine very, very, a while ago. Basically, when I would say we had the shift into this new paradigm. 2020 is a big thing, right? And that's when I entered the portal of plant medicine. And that's when I found out about my birth trauma. So basically, I knew from my mother that I didn't breathe when I came here. So there was always this resistance that I uncovered in plant medicine towards being here, because it didn't feel safe, because I didn't feel ready, because I felt like I don't want, And in those plant medicine journeys, it always felt, and I'm born with Pluto square Saturn, and my son. So there's always this tension and resistance towards, I don't want to be in this place again. We've done that so many times. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. It feels constricting, which is connected to also one of my gene keys, where this physicality in this physical world just felt like I don't know how to do it and what to do, and everything just feels, it's like waking up in a nightmare. That's the best way to describe, where you're like, I feel like everything here, either I'm the alien or everyone else. Like, what are they all doing here? Kind of like you are in the Matrix and you see through everything, but you're like, does no one else see it? So that was when I was really young, but I suppressed a lot of that because of, it was too overwhelming. So basically, going back to the start, I had a lot of vivid dreams, psychic things happening, sleepwalking. I was always in other realms, in a way, and my parents told me, what I did last night, kind of, and I was spooked out about myself because I felt out of control in my body straight as a child. And that developed later on into me not wanting to be in a body and desperately trying to get out of here in a way, because I didn't feel a sense of belonging, because I felt like no one around me understands what I'm even experiencing. How can I even explain it? I don't have words for it. So I always felt there's something wrong with me and everyone else has a normal life. And later on, I would say, in my teenage years, at some point, I don't even know how it happened. It was this like, I mean, it was not even in my teenage years. Astrology came to me later. I never really wanted to have to do anything with like spirituality, and like it all felt woo-woo. So at some point I was just, trying to, I guess, make sense of life in another way, and knew that that's my path. Like, you have to study, you have to go to school, you have to do all of these things. But I never really wanted to do that. So I was depressed. I wouldn't say suicidal when I was younger, but I was just not excited about the future in a way. I developed, for many reasons, also then an eating disorder where, again, it was just an emotional manifestation of showing that there's something, I want to say, wrong with me, but not me being able to articulate it. So I was a people pleaser. I never really wanted to, cause too much attention, weirdly enough, right?
Yeah.
And then created something so people would finally ask me, like, is everything okay with you? And I guess that's the start of my story. And then something in me, I always say my soul, spirit always wanted me to be here, to stay here, even though I had a lot of moments in my life where I almost died, even just recently, actually. And it's fascinating because all of these moments really brought me closer to hearing also inside that whisper of my soul, to like, you're here for a reason. Like, there's, you have something to bring into the world. It's a gift and you have to use it. And when I was in my 20s, that came closer and closer to me, and I started to not push it away anymore. I felt more comfortable around it. And then astrology found me at some point, and I can't even explain how that opened something in me. I just looked at the birth chart and was like, oh, that's the plot twist of my life. That's why all of that happens. That's why these things happen in the past. Oh, that's why I have those parents. It's an entire movie playing out in front of my eyes. And obviously, working with my own chart, I didn't see or realize that not everyone sees that straight away when they look at a birth chart, right? It's usually people look at a birth chart and are like, what is that? How do I make sense of it? How does that fit together? And that's how I realized, okay, maybe I have a talent for that, or whatever it is, and maybe I can also help other people understand the trauma in their life, the suffering in their life, the purpose in their life, because I went more so into evolutionary astrology, because that was what fascinated me the most. Like, what's the evolution of my soul? Like, if I come here, then I want to do the work that I came here to do. I don't want to just, make it meaningless. And that's how I started working with astrology. And then at some point, I always like to go deeper with things. So human design came into me because I always wanted to understand the energetics of everything, and it helped me a lot understanding my own human design. Can't even put it into words. It was such a relief to see also why I was never too extroverted, why I need an invitation for something, and then it comes out of me. And people always said, you are shy and you're, just push yourself out there more, but it never resonated. Like, I didn't even have the energy for that, because that's not how I operate, right? Then, because the gene keys are a huge part of human design, I went deeper into the gene keys because I wanted to understand, because of my own story with my body, how does the body work? How does this machine here that I have to inhabit work? Like, how can I build it back again after everything? What is out of whack with it because of everything that I've done to it? And how can I bring balance into it? And how can I understand how that's all also not just connected to food? Because that's also something that I always like to say to people and explain to people. I see that it's not just a food thing for me. It's an energetic thing, but I can't put it into words. It's about so many more layers that I see visually also. But it's hard sometimes to put it into words, but it's a lot about, we talked about it on our podcast. Everything is water and emotions. So it's very connected to that. And the imprints that we have in our DNA, in our water, that also has a long history in the soul, and not just in this me being Kathy right now. So I want to put a pause on here
Okay.
because maybe you have questions or it was a lot, to digest.
No, this is exactly what this is about. It's for you to, initially it's you share what you need to share because first it's the first part of it, and then there's going to be a deeper layer to it, right? By you just having the space to be and just share. Whilst I might share, why don't you have a sip of your
I
lovely
was just about to say I need to have that mocktail
Quinquat,
right here.
I think it is
Kumquat mojito.
that's the one. And we'll
'Cause
put a little thing in the
when
video
I used to
there.
drink alcohol, mojitos were my thing, so I'm happy for.
Yeah, the New Earth, non-alcoholic, by the way. She doesn't need a drink to be sitting next to me, okay?
To lighten up.
Well, how was it?
Very good.
Okay.
I feel my sacral. I obviously I love to work with the chakras. I mean, I didn't even see that matches.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, when you mentioned, okay, there's a couple of things to unpack. What is this situation in your childhood? You felt disconnected, and I feel like a lot of people who are watching this will resonate because it feels like those who are awakening to their powers have felt like black sheep of the family. They're taking on this. It can be seen as a burden to deal with the ancestral lineage of all the pain and suffering, and it feels like there is an elevation of consciousness where we're shifting from this bloodline, this allegiance to our family, that we're stepping away from that and we're having allegiance to not our biological parents and family, but to the divine, which is meeting our brothers and sisters on this soul journey. So we're breaking free from the chains of that, ancestral patterns, which is not easy, obviously, because we're going against the grain ultimately. And, we have to confront a lot of things, and shame and the guilt and, all of those emotions which are, are stored in the body. And you talked about the body, right? And you mentioned about food and energy. So what has been your biggest battle that's coming from, the older, if you have your family, you felt like there was something wrong with you, and there's that issues, and then, there's the physicality, you're battling something maybe with your body, and you said you nearly died recently, you had it a few times. So I've probably given you quite a lot, but let's unpack that if that's okay.
Well, Pluto in the 12th house is the first thing I can say there, and everyone who knows astrology, I will obviously explain. So Pluto in the 12th house is kind of like the exit house, the last one, and Pluto is death, rebirth, power, psychicness. It's in Scorpio for me as well, so that's where I can explain my connection to other realms. But then also this battle, the integration point is the 6th house, which is the body, which is very much bringing it down to earth, and that's my evolution. That's what, and that's my struggle too, because I'm like, because everything you need to evolve in is obviously not easy, because otherwise it's not evolution, right? And then, actually in my gene keys, one of my life's work gene keys is, I am just bringing it up because you kind of like put it into words, even without me saying that, washing the genetic laundry. Only now with my awareness, I understand where the resistance also comes from I want to say the ego to be in this body, because it's like, I have to wash all of that karma. I have to wash all of that shit that is not even mine. I don't want to.
When you meet it like this, and I know I have also myself, and I'm sure many other people, when we meet it like this, there is certain resistance, which we know is the very thing that causes suffering, because we're not accepting just what is. We're here for a reason, and we're given this, but we resist it, and then we resent it. Why me? Why do I have to go through this? And like, I had a tough childhood. Why then am I clearing their dirty laundry, and being outcasted for it, and I'm the wrong person? So suddenly we met with this sort of victim mindset, which is part of the process, that we're having to confront that, which all feels unfair, right? Until then we fully embrace it and we come through it at some point. So I sort of noticed a bit of, there's that resistance, and maybe, like, how comes?
Yeah, and actually that's where working with my own chart, and again, that's why I do the work that I do, because it's like I'm probably not, I wouldn't be here anymore if I would not have discovered these tools, I want to say, to help my heart and soul remember. Because one of, like, my core wound in the gene keys is gene key 25, which is also always the vocation, so what you are meant to bring into the world. And it is all about feeling constricted in the physical world, feeling constricted in the body, feeling constricted with money, with the food chain, with everything that we've built as the matrix. So now you know why I probably have always been passionate about creating an alternative, a new earth, right? And being part of there, because I can relax there and finally don't feel constricted anymore. But the constriction is the shadow piece. So that's when I say the resistance and me not wanting to be here, which all comes from, I want to say, the shadow states of that energy imprint. But if I see it from the higher perspective, and obviously I've worked through all of that, the siddhi, the highest expression that I can be in that gene key, is universal love. And it goes through acceptance, exactly what you said. So I have to go into acceptance and then see the divine in everything. Yeah. And that's basically my wake up, or it was my wake up moment, where all of a sudden I'm like, gosh, I'm accepting the role that I play. I can see why I actually wrote a book on that, why I chose my parents, why I even designed that. So I'm not playing the victim anymore.
What happened? What was that? What was your story you were telling yourself until you realized that it was a story? How are you the victim of your past?
I mean, now I can almost not relate to it anymore, to see myself as the victim, because it's so obvious to me how I designed all of that. So I look back at my younger self, I want to say, and I'm like, how could you not see that before? We were so caught up in your victim mentality, and it's not to blame. I have so much compassion for her, and I'm so happy to have that contrast also, because otherwise I wouldn't see it so clearly now. So now I'm like going to my parents. I'm like, thank you, gosh, thank God, because otherwise I wouldn't do the work that I do. I wouldn't touch the people that I have. I would not have that life. I would not have traveled the world probably if I felt comfortable in my country.
For anybody who's obviously listening to this, maybe wants to know about your path and the way through it, what was the glimpses of that story, the old life? What was it that, you were telling us? What actually happened for anybody who can then relate? Because your story is, people can see it and then they know how to maybe move from their story. So what was your story in essence?
From when?
From the old earth, let's say. What was the trauma? What was your hardest, most difficult challenge that you were going through? Because you said you died nearly multiple times. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that, if you didn't feel worthy, you wanted to disappear ultimately. Yeah. And what happens, and I'm going through this myself when I was going through the 12 steps, there's extremes. You can be an addict. Mm-hmm. On the other end is to be anorexic. Mm-hmm. And I was...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's either you're trying to control it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it myself. So, for example, like sex and love addiction, right? Yeah. You can starve yourself and call yourself a monk because you're basically trying to control your addiction by cutting yourself off completely. Yeah. Which means that you haven't really got any control. You've just gone one extreme, but there's no balance. But we feel like we're under illusion while I'm doing, I'm abstaining, right? Yeah. Because we feel like we don't actually have any control and we don't know how to give to ourselves. That's another form of anorexia. We don't know how to meet our needs. Mm. And this is something that I recognize in myself. It may not show up. I mean, I was a bigger guy and everything else, but people think it's something to do with the body, but it's not. It's starving ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, starvation can take so many forms. It doesn't have to be so obvious that it is the body, right? You can restrict yourself from pleasure, from everything.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So, from going from your old earth and coming to where you are now, how does that journey look like?
I mean, I think we are still building on that. I wouldn't say I've arrived.
That's why it's a spiritual awakening. Yes. You're still awakening, right?
Yeah, and it goes through waves. Like I'm noticing that you have these moments where it's so crystal clear, you're enlightened, kind of, right? And then it's like, oh, I'm blind again. You wake up in the morning and you didn't wake up. So I have these moments too, and these fluctuations, I think, are why I also manifest, or the mind, it's a mental illness, why that mental illness manifested, because control. And you desperately want to control the states of where you feel comfortable emotionally, also has a lot to do with emotions, but also energetically. I'm very sensitive to everything that goes on energetically as well, like even the solar storms, the moons, everything. And so I always try to still to this day I'm learning. I'm like, okay, what tools help me other than restricting food when I feel out of control with the solar flares or the new moons and the full moons?
Sorry, what do you mean by that? So you restrict yourself from the food for what reasons?
I actually, it is also connected to my human design, but it shouldn't be an excuse. It's like I'm overwhelmed and I can't digest more because the energy, I'm trying to digest what's going on energetically first, and I can't take in more. It's, I need to digest that first, and then I can think about food because I need to cope with what's going on first.
When you say what's going on, like, what is it that's going on? What are you consuming energetically? Because other people are here, right? And I get what you mean, Like my appetite has got a lot smaller. So a lot of the time I'm feeding myself because there's a certain need to nurture, If I didn't, and I could easily probably just cut down on food completely, as I found out in India. And so what for people maybe not understand that, what are you digesting? That's stopping you from saying, giving your body sustenance, right? Because people may not understand that.
I mean, there are multiple layers why my body is also not receiving the nutrients, for example, that I eat then. It has a lot to do with that overwhelm in general. That's like one summary of energy, and food is also energy. Food is energy, Wi-Fi is energy, solar storms are energy, full and new moon, like the planetary stuff, everything is energy. People are energy, right? And because I have so much openness in my chart, I absorb everything. I'm a sponge. And when I feel out of control with boundaries, right, then, then basically I feel full without eating something because I have consumed so much energy. Does that make sense?
Well, they talk about, people living off prana and, breatharians. Would you say that you're more a breatharian or?
No. If I was anything connected to, I would be a solar being. I'm charged by the sun. I'm a Leo. No, but I'm actually, people suggest breatharian for me, and maybe that would be cracking the code for me. I don't know, but I have such a hard time with breathing. I forget to breathe, and I didn't breathe when I come here, So breath and my lungs are underdeveloped still. So, yeah.
Okay. Because, it's like, from hearing your childhood and hearing where you are now, because you're still you seem like vulnerable.
Yeah.
Obviously when you're in the state, because I know how I felt when I used to be a bigger guy when I was training.
Yeah.
Now I'm where I am, I feel my body's vulnerable, but I don't need that protection as much as I used to. Where would you like to ideally see yourself? Like being able to transform that energy and then be able to like come to New Earth Cafe, for example, and eat more often. How do you see it? What would you ideally like to have?
I want to build my body back to its strength and to also represent the big spirit and soul that I have in a way. Yes, and that's probably my journey to the new earth, to build, the new infrastructure or foundation for my soul also to be here, like in a different way. And it's an interesting journey. I'm really grateful for it because it moves me into so many different areas where, again, I'm studying the DNA. I'm my own guinea pig. I'm a sixth line also in human design, so I study myself and my cells to understand how this machine operates, as I said before, what's going on in there, so I don't feel out of control. So I understand, okay, if I have water retention, maybe I have to work with emotional clearing techniques, with tuning forks, with sound. Why is the water retention even there? What is not flowing in my life? Where am I not letting the flow happen? Many different layers where that also led me to alternative medicine, to so many different things that are also part of the new earth that I know. So I also know that there is a purpose to even my condition, where I'm not seeing it anymore as, I have to be ashamed of it, or I have to hide it, or I have to, be a victim of it, right? Because in the past, I'm like, I wish I could just eat normally and have a normal body and look like, a normal woman. But I'm like, no, I mean, if I'm also maybe meant to look people have been commenting on that, and now I laugh at it, or I smile. How do I say that? I find it funny that people on my social media sometimes even comment, "She looks like an alien." Like, well, maybe I am indifferent. Like, who knows? Whatever. I look different.
Well, when you see in certain parts of the world, you kind of go, maybe it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, jokes aside, it's
Everyone wants open contact. Here I am.
But exactly. Hello. But you obviously have. This is what it's about. This is for people to know you. This is your story, and like you said, look, it's not something that you think you've chosen, but right now you're just listening to your body. So, when did that happen? When were you say? Is it from childhood? Is it always been that case that you've had struggles, or you're dealing with energy, or is it something of recent? How has this come about?
I mean, I would say that the restrictive part of me started around 10, 11, like very young. I can't even put my finger on when, but around that time, yeah. But I mean, in my entire family, again, it's conditioning, like no one really knew how to feed a body. So there were extremes, and there was restriction happening already in the womb, like when I was in my mother's womb. So yeah, so I never understood, like, how do people eat?
Even from a young age?
Yeah.
So how did people eat? But you were eating, obviously, when you were like a kid.
Yeah.
But you just felt like disconnection with food?
I want to say there were two sides in the family. One, like, eat everything, and the other one, eat nothing. So it was very out of balance, as you would say. And I always had gut issues, and again, underdeveloped when I was born as well, because of restrictive intake that my mother had. So yeah, and that led to health problems even when I was younger, and then had a lot of issues with the medical field. Never, I had reactions to everything. So, which is a blessing, because my mom already worked in alternative ways with me, because there was no other way. So homeopathy, flower remedies, and that's something I go back to now, or healing. Like, I needed to go to the ocean, for example, for my skin when I was a baby, because otherwise I was, So basically, it always felt uncomfortable to be in a body for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that that's just strangely a gift that you've been given this challenge, because it just says a lot about your soul journey, of course. And, all of this sort of naturopathic ways and everything you're talking about is very much the New Earth way, right? Before you even knew what it was. It's just that it was you were born into it. And I guess it's had to have you look at, the body, yourself in a different way than other people, which has led you to where you are now. You got these awesome tattoos all around you, and it is a gift. It's just a matter of, what is normal, what isn't, right? I don't know. Maybe this is what it is. If you're in a healthy place, then that's great, right? If it's something that you're looking to do and you want to, create this energy, maybe New Earth can help in some way by being in this place and having something with us afterwards. At the end of the day, it's about you and what your reason is for having this soul journey, right? Going through it. So, there's nothing to fix.
No.
It's just you are embracing it until whether something shifts that needs to shift. And if that's meant to be, that's meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's also an energetic connection to it that I want to touch on, and I have to reprogram, and I say a lot about it. It's reprogramming the mind. I mean, we talked about it even in our childhood, in our podcast about patterns and programs from childhood that just run your system. How do I put that? I had a mushroom journey, just full disclosure. And ever since, I can't not see ourselves as neural networks and just machine operating system that we have to code ourselves. That's why I always say, I'm helping you code your reality, or like it's coding, it's all matrix, right? And I saw clearly how my own programs were running and what programs were running. But obviously for myself, it's hard to crack the code to shift, for example, the program in me not shutting down receiving for many reasons. So one thing that I know I created for myself, you want to say, is when I'm overwhelmed, I don't receive. So people think I'm not eating, or people think, I don't know what people think when they see me. She hasn't eaten in forever. It's not the case. Like, I eat, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Wow. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? What you're doing is like, we touched on Donald Trump yesterday, is what people trigger in other people.
Mm-hmm.
What is it bringing up in other people?
Yeah.
And you're coming around and triggering people like, eat food. It's about them, but they project something on you. Yeah. And so they it's wondering.
Eat less than me,
Wow. And it's all, how you're obviously metabolizing foods. And as you said, the energetic, people can't understand it. It goes beyond their, comprehension. And it's scary for people because they don't know what to make of it. And then you trigger something in them because then they feel uncomfortable. And who's to blame for that? Well, you are, of course, because you made me feel that way.
Yeah. And it's also a big part of, I want to say, the new earth, understanding, and it's something I preach about. I attract a lot of clients also with medical issues where they've been to all doctors that think they have the solution, right? And it's not just as easy as saying, yeah, you just have to eat more. So that's one part, right? But we have to approach it in so many different ways. Yes, I have to eat more, of course, like that's obvious. But I also have to work on how do I receive what I eat. And that's not just energetic. It's okay, I have to understand, for example, just recently I went into the rabbit hole of working with peptides and enzymes. Because I'm like, I'm missing some enzymes in my gut specifically that help me break down the food. I ended up in the hospital over the last, I think, 2 years here in Dubai, 4 times. Same hospital, always emergency. And I'm like, oh gosh, again. And it was always because of water retention in my legs. I mentioned that before, where my body was just out of whack and it went upward and upward. And they always said, yeah, well, you have protein deficiency and the protein is just in your body. I'm like, that's not possible. The majority of what I eat is protein. And they were prescribing a protein powder, right? And rest. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. That's not the solution for me. And it is because the osmotic pressure in the cells got out of balance. So I knew, okay, something is out of balance. And I tracked it and it was always around the new moons and the full moons, kind of, or eclipses happening. I'm like, gosh, how do I crack the code? Like, I don't want to end up here for the 6th time, and they literally know me already for that. And now I understand it's because the protein is not metabolized. So my gut is not, and that's obviously coming from my body not knowing how to digest food when you restrict for so long. So when I was younger and really restricted, right, then your body stops producing specific enzymes or things, and because it doesn't need it, right? And now I need to train it again. And I need to help it, basically, build it again, create it again, need it again. And that's not something that the medical field would tell you. And that's why it's so multi-layered. And they wouldn't probably prescribe you peptides for that or flower remedies to, help you with when you feel out of control. Like, there's so many things that I could say about the medical field, but it's essentially what I always like to bring it down to. Our bodies are not robots. And that's how I tried to approach my own body. That's why I say it, to think like every single day you need to have, and even in the spiritual field, in the health field, it's very much like you need to meditate like that, and you need to, have that juice, and here you have different needs every day, which is where I felt out of control because I can't predict the needs, right? And you can't predict life.
No, and it sounds like, really, I have a lot of empathy that you've gone through that last couple of years, because it sounds like you're exacerbated by it, just this condition that, it's not like you are starving yourself on purpose and this is something that you want to do. This is just your body, it sounds like, is not able to break it down and move it in a certain way. It's funny how we get certain ailments, and I've had many in my own life, that they're usually a message with regards to our own, how we perceive ourselves or how we perceive reality. Like, it's psychosomatic, and it's usually a feedback mechanism trying to bring us back into alignment. So if you were to sit here, what do you think your body is actually telling you right now?
I mean, right now my body's getting better, thank God.
Thank God.
So it's hearing or noticing that I'm listening better, because I when I'm open, I haven't listened to my body. It was like the last thing to pay attention to, because I was more concerned with, okay, how do I even survive in this world if I have to be here? Not understanding that, well, the body might be the first thing to pay attention to if you want to survive on this world.
Yeah.
And not
because
like
you wanted to detach from your body back then,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
well, that's what it is. Ultimately, it's coming back into your body.
Yeah.
And if you need to land in your body, from what I notice in myself, because my ego or aspects of myself escaped reality because I didn't want to be in the reality
Yeah.
I was in. It sounds quite similar. So we leave our bodies, and they say that entities come in and, all these different things. But when we leave our body, we're basically afraid to feel certain feelings. And it's easier to go into a fantasy and escape reality and talk about aliens and things like that, because it's, at least we get to control that world rather than be here in, in the old Earth or whatever Earth we decide to land on. So it's about feeling, can I trust my body? Am I safe enough to land? Am I okay to be here? And this is what I've had to ask myself and be okay. And I've had to really feel what it is I was escaping from. So is there some aspect of that where it's just a matter of landing in your body and you feeling safe enough to be on this earth? Because from what you said, it was, I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to. So if you affirm that enough time, especially as a kid, your subconscious is like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And so you're like ultimately disappearing. Your body's rejecting, going, I don't want to be here. So why would you, so you're in this kind of conflict. And obviously it's affirming now, going, I'm safe. I can be home. I'm safe in my body. I'm landed. This is, do you feel like maybe that's, like maybe there's certain feelings of the childhood that need to come up? Like maybe feeling back into your body, that things that, like you had the mushroom ceremony, things opened up for you, is there some resonance? Would you go further in the medicine field, or have you done rebirthing or other techniques to maybe start to feel your body and actually feel every, and I say it because I was like a corpse when I was lying and doing rebirthing. I was like that, they just looked at me and go, Alex, you kind of look like you're dead. And because I was scared to be in my body, I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know, I had to do a whole course of learning it, because we're basically in PTSD, and complex PTSD, and we're, not sure what it's all about. So when we're in that state, it's difficult to want to be here and be in the body. So we start to have that death urge rather than life urge.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of you're here going, well, I have the life urge because I've got all these things, but the subconscious is going, well, that's that goes against what we had an agreement when we were younger. Cause there's your inner child, and there's certain parts that are protecting the inner child that maybe saying, it's too difficult to face reality. Let's focus on this, and then we never have to really go into the deeper, maybe wounds. Ultimately, because it can be seen as a distraction from yourself, right? Rather than actually going into the wound and dealing with it. And I say it because I'm basically looking at me right now. This is what I literally had a session yesterday, and with my wife and therapist, and I touched on a wound because the doer me is like just, especially, and I was saying to this Tony Robbins coach, as part of this package we bought like years ago, and he was saying the doer got lost in the personal development industry. Because that's exactly what you thrive when you're the doer.
Manifesting generator here. You have like all the energy and just scatterbrain.
Yeah, exactly. Scatterbrain for sure. So the doer part of me is like lost in that field, and it's encouraged. But it gets to the point where the doer is just doing to justify his existence, because what the doer is doing is protecting a wounded child, and that wounded child is doesn't feel worthy to just be. So the doer justifies, this part's existence. And when that doer's in the waiting room, and they call it an IFS therapy, that part then is exposed. And that is like, I feel shame, I feel guilt.
It's the ego dying.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm exposed. And I'm like, oh my God, this is an open wound. This is, and most people would never want to go there. They'd rather check out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very scary to be vulnerable and embrace that. So, and I say that because I have no idea. I mean, I'm just feeling into why I'm sharing this. It must be something energetically, right? Because you said it yourself, I didn't know how to explain it. Maybe I'm here to mirror that in some way. Is there an aspect that maybe there's a wound inside that needs to be embraced by you?
Oh, lots of aspect, and every single day I'm dismantling more and more. It's a rabbit hole, the layers also. That's where I see it also as a fascinating design. And sometimes I wonder if I keep creating also these layers to keep me like engaged in a weird way, because you can get lost in healing as well. It's like there's more to dismantle, because I've done so much healing done all the plant medicine, done all the therapy, all of that, but it's very connected also to actually a gene key that you have. We share that gene key. The mind tries to understand it all and fix it all and find solutions for it all and answers for it all. But it's what you said, it needs to be felt. And I haven't cracked the code yet to open the floodgates in a weird way to all the emotions that are involved with that. It's like you have to wash all of your cells. So can I tell you? No, I can't tell you which part in me is still imprinted with like, are you crazy that you want to be here? Yeah, you think you've cried all the tears, you think you've cleared yourself free, but no, and that's also where that acceptance piece comes in, where I'm like, well, it's still there, so there's still a part of me that I haven't uncovered. It's okay, it's okay, and it's divine timing when it will shift. We want to arrive at our healing place and healed self and perfect self, I want to say, tomorrow, or yesterday. And we think one ayahuasca journey will get us there or whatever. Or, this system or this session. It's like, it's a journey.
Absolutely spot on. What you're sharing right now, obviously you're where you are and you're sort of having to, your dharma is to wear it where people can see it. But everybody else is they're really, say, anorexic or starving inside.
Sure.
They just can't see it. And you're ultimately mirroring to them what they feel inside about themselves. Because we realize that we can't feed the soul with food. And we're all starving.
Yeah.
And that is the old earth. That is that we're all starving for something. Yeshua talked about it, obviously, in the Bible. That when you open the floodgates, when you crack the code, you don't need food and water in that sense. The waterfall, the abundance, that everything opens up inside and you have access to it all. And we're so starving at the moment. We are, you know what I mean? And
because ultimately, and I know that too, we are source fed. So I'm also wondering, okay, there is also a disconnection from the source for me, because otherwise I wouldn't starve. So whenever I'm disconnected from my soul, my body is suffering more. I've noticed that. It doesn't matter how much I eat or not eat. It's because I'm not connected. And then my body is screaming, which also means that I don't bring source energy, so to speak, in my body. So I mean, there's a long journey I can go into with my Kundalini awakening and what Kundalini energy even represents for me, because that also started very young and is a big piece of why I felt out of control in my body, because you just have electricity flowing through you and you don't know what's going on, and yeah. So, and it doesn't always feel good. It can be painful. So knowing also that that's a gift though. So when I meditate, for example, I'm instantly connected. Like I'm instantly somewhere else and it's just flowing through me, which I have resistance to meditating for that reason even.
because you fly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say fly. Meditation is very physical for me. So I those people that are just flying I can have those moments, obviously.
So what's the issue is that you feel it in your body?
Yeah, like meditation for me is, again, Kundalini energy just activating every single cell. It's fascinating to me, because in moments where my body was in so much pain and everything, right? If I sit in a meditation like that, nothing.
I relate to that. When I was in India, sitting there, and I was fasting, and I didn't have the vibration and the energy, I was flying.
Yeah.
Like I was in my body, but I was like, vroom, like, it was.
The body
The
is doing its
sensations
own
were
thing.
incredible.
That's where you see
It was healing itself.
It is. It's a healing energy.
So maybe maybe that was also what you talked about, that while you're going through this is healing the ancestral line. Like you going through this is your way of connecting to the channel. You know, when we're overly eaten or overly whatever, overly comfortable, we disconnect. So your journey is to basically be ready to
burn
connect,
that away.
to burn the energy away. And it's just as long as it needs to be. And it's about preserving yourself so that you can at least keep doing that until whatever time where you're ready to release that. And then whatever the next journey is for you, that is your journey, and nobody here to change it or fix it. You have your sole purpose. There is something going on beyond anybody's comprehension.
And I want to speak to that because just recently, again, talk about synchronicity. Synchronicity is getting wilder, even with that part of like clearing ancestral karma and how it's all connected. I mean, first of all, I want to say, you know, in my whole female lineage, everyone had some sort of eating disorder, so obviously clearing that in a way. But what just recently happened that was really wild. I mean, yeah, I'm going to go back to what just recently happened, but I mentioned that I was in the hospital a lot of times with the water retention, and always around that time, same timing, my dad had water retention in his heart. And one time he even had to go to the hospital and almost died. And it was always synchronistic with what was going on in my body. And when I saw that and realized, first I didn't understand. Then again, going deeper into gene keys, Akashic records and stuff like that with some of my friends, it's like, it's very much the DNA is entangled, quantum entanglement. There's stuff happening. And you feel the sadness sometimes of your dad or the other way around, obviously very much related to water emotions. There's something going on. And just recently, I mentioned, I was basically sick. And after I was sick, I was too weak. And then I fell and injured my back. I injured my lower back. And I literally couldn't bend forward. I couldn't do anything. And then I got back to Dubai and had a phone call with my dad. And 2 days later, he told me that my grandpa just fell and injured his lower back. And he can't move and can't bend. And my dad is the only one taking care of him. Long story short, the week later, my dad's birthday, I spoke to him and everything. And he said, last night something happened and I have a slip disc again. He injured his lower back and couldn't move. It was literally in the span of 2 weeks. All of us had back issues, which I realized, okay, there's some sort of connection.
Wow. I'm sure many people can relate to that, and I know I can. And it gets to the point, when people are very skeptical, I've stopped trying to prove it to people. You kind of know your truth and you just move forward with providence. So what is, ultimately, what does that mean for you? Because you're going through this journey, you notice that there is this quantum entanglement. What needs to happen for you to, say, cut the cords or, finally reach that state where you release yourself from that? You've done the work. What needs to happen for you?
I'm not sure if something needs to happen other than acceptance and taking responsibility for it, maybe.
For what?
Everything is a mirror. So if my dad has issues in his back, I created it in a way. He's a reflection. So looking deeper into my back, looking deeper in what's going on with me. It's always a journey within for me. Everything is a reflection.
So what was it reflecting back to you?
My issues around lack of support, stability, the foundation of my life. Yeah.
Okay, so where there's lack of support, where can you find support?
I mean, there are many ways. Building a stronger foundation for myself, which is not just the body, it's everything. And feeling also, feeling that I am supported, which also it's physically, so the community around, or environment is a big thing for me. Environment, community, belonging, people, right? But then also really feeling that I'm also supported by spirit all the time. The ego always is like, I have to manage everything myself. But then if I look back in hindsight, did I do anything? the most magical moments I couldn't plan for, I couldn't control, I couldn't, and always bringing my brain back to that, being like, okay, don't freak out. You've always been supported. You never died, even in those moments you thought. Something always supported you. And to have that discipline in a way also to connect to that energy more and to not think, when I open my eyes in the morning, I have to manage the entire reality myself, because I'm not doing anything at the end of the day. It's what I said earlier to you. It's too perfectly designed that we could design that ourselves. That's when you have to humble the ego, because, I like to bring myself even back to who even has these issues. Who? Not spirit. No, it's the character that you play that has these issues.
I heard this recently. It's so spot on, because I heard it on this other show, and this guy said he saw, this guy he's walking down the set like a spider in India, disfigured and whatever, and he had pity for him, and he felt sorry for him, and then something hit him, his higher self or whomever it might be, shift of perspective, and the realization was, well, maybe this guy has incarnated in this body as sort of like the PhD of the human experience, and I'm here as the kind of kindergarten. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I chose, I want the, like a level of a game. I want the hardest level.
Yeah.
Rather than, I think I'll take the easy level,
I want to be the expert of challenge.
Yeah, so when we look at our challenge and the suffering we go through, we go, wow, I chose this. I'm still choosing that reality. So
Like
if I'm
drama.
choosing this
we
and
like
I step,
plot.
and then we step out the victim, then we don't need to suffer. Then we step out the suffering, and then we can step into ultimately joy and love and, acceptance. And then we can be truly authentic and go, I'm not a victim to anything. And especially now at this time, there's a lot of victimization, which is helping create divides, in society right now. And the new earth is about accepting what is, that there is no science. That's the illusion of duality. In fact, whatever we seek, and we'll always seek the opposite. And any time you choose a side, you'll always attract the opposite. So it's just this forever game. You're just never going to get out of this karmic wheel, right? So the new earth is to kind of break that or transform that, let's say, that we can transcend and move into this place of, unification, oneness.
Can I just interfere for a second?
Of course.
Because I have to laugh when you said it. The way you put things in words, like you say, when you can get out of the, what did you say, the wheel of samsara?
Karmic,
wheel.
samsara, exactly.
That's Gene Key 22 again. Your life purpose. It's literally.
You might have to share this now from the
have
beginning.
To share because I don't know. It's just, I say cosmic poetry when I see, and that's also why I love the work that I do when I see the energy working through people and they are so unaware of it. They can't help but just do that. That's also where I every single day get reminded of, I'm not doing anything anyways. Like, why do I take myself so serious? And so, like, I have to, in your terms speaking, I have to make sure the New Earth Cafe is running. I have to build it. I have to, put all of it's all going to happen through you.
It's so, I agree.
Don't think you're so important,
But I forget, and my ego was like, no, it's me, I have to do it. I'm like, I'm tired of doing.
I'm the one in charge.
I know, and it's like, I'm special. I'm tired of being there. I can't do this, But it's not about that I can't or can or whatever. It's just like letting go, and it's remembering, breathe, step out, trust the divine plan. Like you said, it's all happening anyway. It's all just witness the miracle. Just witness it all. And my fear is, well, if I'm not doing, and when I was not doing when I was a kid, that's when life fell on top of me. Mm-hmm. So I have to, it's like letting go, let go, like the movies,
Trusting
let go,
again.
trust, let go. I'm like, my hand is like holding on for dear life. It's like the monkey, when they catch a monkey in the jungle and they put the nut in the cage, the monkey will come along and put the hand in and grab onto the nut. And when they see the human coming along, the human knows that monkey's not letting go of the nut. And because their hand is inside the cage and they're creating a fist, they can't get the hand out. All the monkey has to do is let go of the nut, and his hand can go through and he'd be free. And the human just knows the mentality of the monkey. He's not going to let go of that nut. We all have a nut that we're holding on to, which makes us nuts. So I think it's a beautiful segue for you to share about what the Gene Keys is, what this, let's say, this Gene Key in me that you notice. So that for me, that I can let go that much ease so that everybody else can then resonate and find out their purpose and come to you and find out, okay, what is mine? So I know I can just let go because this energy, you just see it. This energy is just working through me. So I can trust in the energy and learn to stop doing and just learn to be.
So, I mean, obviously there are layers to that. The gene keys, first of all, I say the energetic imprint or energy you carry that still has a journey. So you still are here to maybe alchemize that and ultimately become the highest expression of that. So, and Richard Rudd, who brought that into life or into this realm, has this whole book with transmission. So it's like, you can read about the shadow of that energy, the gift of that energy, and the city, which is the highest expression. And for all of us, the work that I do with it is to help you get into the highest expression and see, what it's all about. What is this energy? Why do you even have that energy? What's the energy for? I have energy. What's the use of it? It's not energy. Is not energy. And it's 64 different keys. I see it like keys in your DNA that you can unlock. And the reason for you specifically, you can relax is because you're already doing so much of the city. There's not much more, like naturally, intuitively. But obviously there are people that are completely in the shadow, right? And then, working with the gene keys can be very helpful to get you out of that victim state, to help you access your gift, and then ultimately express the city, and to clear all that darkness in your life away. And so in your case, we had the podcast interview, obviously, on my podcast, and I didn't know about your chart. And then afterwards I looked into it, and I'm like, gosh, that's so, that can't be it, because we talked so much about grace, and I brought up suffering is grace, and I didn't even know why I was talking about gene key 22 and suffering is grace. I mean, it's one of my favorite gene keys, even though I don't have it. But it felt like energetically I needed to bring it up. I needed to talk about it because of things that you also said with your own trauma and things. And when I looked up your chart, I'm like, sure enough, it's your personality, son. It's in line 6, so you're even a role model for it, and it's your life's work. And I said to you, Gene Key 22, it's a big transmission, but one of my main takeaways is suffering is grace, right? And when you go deeper into the transmission, it speaks a lot about Yeshua, Jesus, which you referred back to a lot, and about the 7 sacred seals. I mean, it's one of the biggest transmissions as well. But in the city, it talks about the new earth and the new heaven. And it talks about Jesus taking on the suffering of the world so they are out of the wheel of samsara. So, what can I say? Yeah, and that's usually what happens when I have readings. And even for myself, people start to cry because your cells resonate. They remember. You have that inside, and sometimes I have it. Even now I need to cry. When I read my gene keys and I need to cry because there's no explanation to it. It's just this, gosh, my cells just remembered, and that's when a key is unlocked. It's like, fuck yes.
Because it resonates, it sits deeply, and so many people, that's food for the soul.
Yeah,
that's ultimately
your soul is like,
that's
I'm
your way of
finally
feeding your soul, because what you just discussed is ultimately the energy of food that you really feel that people are maybe missing.
Yes.
And it's funny because you mirror to them what they think you're missing something, and you're mirroring to them actually what if they're triggered, they're missing something, and they can come to you and go, what you're really needing is to feed food for your soul. And that's what you're ultimately doing. You're taking that say burden on, but it's actually liberating them to feed something that actually is necessary, which is even more nourishing than, say, the body. When the soul is starving, the body's okay, with pain, whatever, but when that hole is there, that is far worse than any pain the body can go through.
And even for me, I can't explain to you what it does in my body when I have someone sit in front of me cry because they remember. I'm like, gosh, I'm fed for the entire day, so to speak. Obviously it takes some energetic,
of course, but I get what you mean. Like there's a liberation. There's an opening that because
it's a mirror. It's truly a mirror.
which is beautiful. And it's funny that we said, I mean, this table that I do the podcast on is, funny enough, 22.
22.
Which is...
And the other gene key that I wanted to touch on or mention to you earlier is because in the interview with me, you talked so much about, for you, it's all about, you know, the new earth and the podcast and the people you invite and the interviews you have. It's all about authenticity. Your journey of life is about authenticity. And when I looked into your gene keys again, I saw, okay, your purpose gene key, like what you're here, what your soul is here to learn and go through. And yeah, one of your biggest works is gene key 12, which can be explained literally in the transmission. It says there's only one word to describe that. That's authenticity. And I was like, yep. And the great thing about it, to top it even up, in human design, you can see that 12 and 22 are connected, so they build a channel, which is from the solar plexus to the throat. So what are you talking about all the time? About authenticity in the new earth, 22 and 12.
And it's funny because amount of times over the last decade, people said your throat chakra, it's stuck, you're stuck. Because I've been an authentic, you know, it's my whole life I've been wearing a mask. We talked about that. And like you said, you know, you're waiting for that moment to unlock something. And I'm also there. Yeah. Like I've had a glimpse of it, what it feels like. And then it kind of got shut away from me. Yeah. And I guess I've been kind of seeking that liberation, that something within me and you know, the journey continues. And it's wonderful that because of that, maybe that's why this is all kind of being created. But it's not, what I realize is the new earth, it doesn't even matter what happens outside. It's not about building new earth out here, really. That's the doer, because I haven't reached it, let's say within me, like the door is opening. If once I find it here, I don't need anything else on the outside. It's like, it's there, and it's just a matter of sharing that. And when we, the Yeshua thing, I mean, I did a quantum test, and I have a doctor I'm interviewing tomorrow about it. He has his quantum, you do a quantum resonance, you speak into a thing like this, and it shows your energetic field. And it said my life, whatever, sacrificial lamb. I'm like, what is going on?
Jesus is everywhere.
I'm just like...
And then what you mentioned that your son said to you, you look like Jesus.
Yeah, and I'm saying, I'm like, yeah, and I'm obviously, but that's like, I'm thinking to myself, that's an ego thing. How am I sitting here and Jesus, come on, like, you know, it's this schmuck. But then I keep seeing these signs, and this is why the book is getting written. It's like, there's too many synchronicities. I don't know, I'm embracing who I need to be. I'm not Jesus. I don't know who Jesus. I can only be me. I can only be truly me in this time and this place with all my experiences by meeting special, unique people who are mirroring something within me. And we come together and co-create something in the first time in history that we are in this situation, that we can all connect in this way, because there's over, you know, nearly 8 billion people. I don't think there's ever been this many people on the planet before. But
that's the moment, you know, and it's so hard to wrap your head around. The mind will never understand, but it's, I say cosmic poetry, but at the same time, it's just a cosmic joke, because you have those moments, maybe, you know, you've had those moments, but where you just realize, duh, because everything around you is just a mirror to help you remember. You know, it's like the divine is in everything, and it's like hiding behind the tree, behind, you know, you created Jesus to help you remember. I created you and the situation with the podcast to remember, because ultimately you are alone in your own simulation.
Help. Somebody let me out of the simulation.
Yeah.
Well, once we embrace that, it's embracing our true reality in ourselves. You know what I've noticed in myself, there's at times I feel like a child in an adult body because of growing up in a dysfunctional family. And there's a group called ACA, which is, I think, adult children from alcoholics / dysfunctional families. So I joined this group to check it out, and I'm there and I see, you know, people who are like 50, 60, white beard or whatever else go, hi, I'm an adult child or a child adult, whatever it is, something like that. I feel like I'm home for a moment here. Like I do feel like a child at times, yet there's this responsibility, like we're talking about Yeshua, who was a mature person. And yet at times I feel like this immature person, and until I embrace that or deal with whatever's, really that this little child, inner child can fully feel safe, the doer stops and then really align, and then I can actually grow up. Then I can embrace every aspect of myself, feel safe, and then I feel like this alignment will take place. Then I'm guided. I don't have to do.
Yeah,
I can then watch this miracle take place, the new earth birth, and however way we wanted to see it, and this golden age will take place. And people like ourselves who've had all these challenges has been a reason to prepare us for this transition, this ascension that's going to happen. They say 2027, where people are really going to struggle unless you've already been on the path and been doing this work. Then we can show the way for others to transition from the old earth to the new earth. Yeah. So it's not all for vain. It's not done for nothing.
It's this journey of, and again, everything is a mirror. We just are experiencing the mirror of what happens when the ego takes over, when we don't let the divine take over. And this entire transmission about 2027, the new earth, is about us stepping back and letting the show unfold in front of us and actually enjoying it. Instead of thinking, no, we have to design it all and do it all and create it ourselves. And, that's what you see with, we create this entire matrix and infrastructure where we think it's better than if we let something else, nature unfold.
I mean, who are we to think of our ego to think my limited brain can build something more than what the divine has in store? Like, that's just ridiculous to think that I'm somehow going to build it or know it or whatever. It's like, no, actually, when I get in the way, it gets in the way. Yeah. And I feel like I break up the energy because of my way of controlling and because of my fears. I'm fearful, so I need to control, which basically restricts the energy flow. But that's also part of the divine plan anyway.
Yeah, but it's also, it's simple programming. We come here and learn that we have to do the thing. And we are not being reminded, and it's an analogy I bring up all the time in my sessions. I'm like, okay, look, to bring yourself back down to reality, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Did you have to do anything in order to arrive here? Did you no.
I don't think so.
Your mom? Did she have to make sure for 9 months that she's actively working on, actively pushing and doing, and every single day it was her main job to make you grow? What made you grow? What? And what gave you the first breath? And what's making your heart beat? What's digesting food while we are speaking? Do you have to actively do all of the things? No. So what is that is doing all of that? And when did we stop trusting that it's also making sure that somehow else we're going to survive here?
Beautifully put. There is a divine intelligence that sees that we are worthy just being, no matter if we're good or bad, something is keeping us here for a reason. Yeah. And who are we to judge, a person that's involved in our sort of history now or whatever's happening and it's unfolding? Who are we to say, oh, that's bad? When we look at the bigger picture, when we zoom out, everything has orchestrated towards our evolution. Yeah. And if we took out aspects of sort of certain people in our life, well, if they were not there, then it would be better. How do we know? They're there because they're there. They're there for a reason. Everything is in sync. Everything's, a mirror. And especially now when there's so much complication and confusion, sides are, and there's battle of good and evil, and again, it's another illusion, this separation. What is it mirroring within us? And are we able to, do we have the capacity to love ourselves and others through it, whatever it is, and not to judge or say that's wrong? Because who are we from our limited perspective to say any of it's wrong or any of it's right? There's a divine plan. Whatever we perceive as bad in that moment turns out to be good later. Yeah. And whatever's good then can be seen as bad later. So it's just a matter of, like you said, it's surrendering, just watching the show, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just seeing the end of the universe or the beginning of the universe, simultaneously, the end and the beginning.
Yeah. Who is judging? That's the best question to ask, Who is judging? Who is causing your misery? God is not judging, even though we learn that he is, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Source is not judging. And as you said, at the end of the day, it's a gene key that we both share, actually. Gene key 10. It's about being and self-love.
We have our self-love store next door, which we might have to close down.
What?
Well, just because...
I'm going to take over. That's my North Node gene key. Maybe it's the store next
Well,
door.
please check it out.
Okay, self-love is my purpose.
Well, sometimes self-love also means like, if we have a store here that costs money and it's not working, you have to...
People are not investing enough in their own self-love. That's the fucking mirror of it. I hate that. I'm going to invest now.
Well, this is a sign, where for us it's, what is self-love? Well, is keeping a store self-love, or is it the self-love closing it so it doesn't cost extra expensive to keep something open? Because we think self-love is outside of us.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
self-love is actually, there's an indication, it tells a story. We're here to create self-love, but really there's self-love within us, because do we really need to create more
it's not
produce,
something
more,
in the external, yeah.
So this is, it's all beautiful lesson because we're looking at it out there, but really, as much as it's cliche it is, it's inside,
but
it's
that
inside.
would mean we have to close down New Earth Cafe because it's inside.
Well, let's see if that's what it is, I'm going to learn to get out of the way.
New Earth to me is also, again, working with the gene keys and human design and understanding that we are a cosmic team, and the ego is one little drop in the ocean, but we are in the entire ocean, and to learn to swim with everyone else around, and that synergy, understanding the synergy of our energy together. You can say Aquarian age, it's about understanding I have this energy, you have this energy, we come together, we merge and we synergize to build something, just as simple as that. Electricity, coming together to create something, or chemistry, two elements coming together, having a cosmic party and being like, let's create something fun.
Exactly. Yeah. It's knowing how to play. And I have to say, I've been guilty of not knowing how to play. I've been a worker, work. And I was recently with Barbara O'Neill, and she was speaking about, she talks about health. And thankfully in New York Cafe, and I've been in this game of health for a long time, that we do a lot of what she shared about, food and what type to eat. So it's very alkaline here, and people, it's a healing place. It's a healing center. People eat here, and they're preserving their body. That elements they didn't even know maybe showing up are disappearing, and it's a blessing. Like, let's hope it's not just it stays here, but it expands, because then we can connect people all around the world and hear all of these different stories as we then transition into this new era. And she shared there's that 8-8-8 rule: 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work, and 8 hours play a day. I'm like, what would I even do for 8 hours play? What would any of us know what to do?
Yeah.
Or how to be? Because we're so addicted to doing, because that's how we feel like we can justify ourselves, because society is built in such a way that is how you justify yourself, caught in this imprisoned matrix, whatever you want to call it, that we need to continue doing. And, if we all sat down and go, okay, what's my perfect day look like? What would I actually be, how would I be? But that doing is like a drug, It's quite interesting, because people would feel, like I do, guilty of just being, right? Just not having to work. How do I justify my living on this planet if I'm not doing, if I'm not giving? Then I'd be forgotten. And then if I'm forgotten, I could, our deepest fear is to die alone, So if I'm doing, then I'm of value, and I won't die alone. And we're caught up in this sort of matrix, because at the end of the day, whatever our fears are, at the end of it, it's usually being alone and dying alone. And so how do we then create a new earth that we can step out of doing and just trust the divine is unfolding as it is, and we respond from a place of being, not from a place of lack and having to do to justify our existence?
Well, it's actually very connected to the new earth for a few reasons, because in the transmission also Ra Uhuru from the human design talks about the new children, the new earth, right? And in the Gene Key 55, new children, new earth, and how these humans, humans as I like to say, how they actually navigate the world. And that's why we do what we do right now. We build an infrastructure for them to be here, because they won't tolerate doing the way we did. for them, what you described about being, that's their doing. Where it's like, how, and it's not even they have they can't even, they don't have the energy for it because they operate purely from being, purely from instinct, which basically to me means, when you ask about how do I be, right? How do I be? It's similarly to what we described in meditation, where you allow, so to speak, to let the impulses run your day. And it's not something society would tolerate right now. It's like, well, I'm just running impulsively, because what is the impulse in you that wants to do something or wants to go somewhere? Because you can never not do anything. Again, there's always something happening in the body. There's always something happening, and listening to that and following that instead of your own agenda, that's what being means. Can mean, oh gosh, I feel like I have to hug a tree right now. I can't explain, and it's not part of my to-do list, and it's not part of the agenda for 6 o'clock. But I get something in me says, gosh, I have to do this, and maybe there's an energetic thing that needs to happen, a fusion with the tree. Or you have the impulse to go to a store and buy something, and you're like, I don't need, and it's not about you buying the thing that's a dangling carrot, but the impulse came because you needed to meet someone there or have an energetic entanglement, synergy with the store person. So that's the energetic understanding that those new beings have, so to speak, that there is a synergy and interconnectedness with their own impulses and what needs to happen energetically also around them. That makes sense. So there are people that already in a way operate like that, and more and more children are also being diagnosed with ADHD, autism. There's the whole thing. It's not only that, because there is trauma involved sometimes too, but yeah, it's basically understanding that you don't have the energy to fit into or to do things that are put onto you, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because you were mentioning earlier, this burden of dealing with our family stuff or whatever it else. It's about learning not to be a victim, and actually, I feel it's connecting with our higher self, with the divine. The burden is, how do I learn to give the burden?
Yeah, and they won't need the gene keys and stuff to help them remember. They're like, no, I carry the energy, and I don't carry that energy, so I'm not doing that, because that's not what I came here for. There will be a lot, we can learn from them.
From children?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they know exactly.
They don't want to. Why would I want to study and do this or whatever and work and then a job? I don't want to do that. And they're like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Why would I do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I had to break out of that matrix and this idea of working 9 to 5 and everything else, and
they're like, no, I'm not going to do that bullshit. Like, that's not what I came here for.
Which is great, because that's the collapse. Because if these people are not going into it, these children are not going into the system to basically prop it up, then nothing is propping up. People are waking up unless people are going into it. There's going to be, but the whole system is built on this. It's a whole illusion. So if that when it starts collapsing, as we're talking about, because there will be a bottom out, then people, because then they suddenly they have free will. They think they have free will. They know how to think for themselves. Suddenly they're exposed, because whatever they've been blaming, whatever they've been staying safe in the system, and suddenly the veil was lifted. Suddenly they're like, oh, who am I? What am I without this? And that can be very confronting, because ultimately there's consciousness meeting the unconscious.
I also said before, there's definitely trauma and PTSD from waking up too.
Of course.
That's why
very suddenly.
Yeah, where it's like, fuck, and you can't trust yourself anymore, because it is that moment. I want to say, if you, that's why plant medicine is not for everyone, because you have these wake up moments in like.
It could be too. People call deer in the headlights. I've seen people in plant medicine.
And you can't trust
They
yourself.
don't know how to comprehend it. They then have that realization, and then they double down and hide even further, because it's too scary to comprehend that level of truth. And have they got the capacity to hold the space for that truth? Because some people are just not ready or willing to be able to surrender enough their ego that has been keeping them protected.
It's not just that. It's also, really, I mean, you can also, bring the analogy of if you realize that you've been in a narcissistic relationship and you didn't see it, right? Something like that, where you just question your own discernment.
Well, of course, you trust in your own judgment of how you perceive reality.
And then in the quote unquote future, or in now, you're like, is this like, can I trust myself here now? So it's all about learning that self-trust again, or listening to your intuition, my tattoo. So to really learn, what does that mean, and can I trust my discernment? But then also going back to what we talked about a lot, where it's like, but it had to be this way. It could not have been any other way, because we always think we need to prevent us from suffering, right? And prevent us from being in a narcissistic relationship or being blind to see things. But no, we don't. The ego wants, because we think, it should all be fine and nice and harmony all the time. But not accepting the contrast also needs to happen. And it's part of what we said also in my interview with you. It's part of the plot. Like, it would be so boring if we watch a movie and everything is amazing straight away. Like, the fairy tale, the wedding.
Well, think about that for a moment, because then ultimately, if we're coming into the new earth and we do pass through that stage where people and children no longer need to suffer, that it will be that kind of movie. This is what we want to move into, where it is. But you know what? It would be okay to, obviously we need to go through that transition to say, look, let's not be a victim. Let's transform that. We've all come through it. Beautiful things have come through it. We're now stepping out of this, that plane, old earth, into the new earth. So then in, say, 50 years time, 100 years time, the children born into this place, they will now just develop their abilities. And we're looking at creativity and play on earth rather than working to justify existence. Then it's about, like, New Earth Cafe is educating people to exchange not money, but energy in order to become like healing for one another. Because if we have the farms, when we have the farms supplying to the cafe, the communities, we're eating. And we've got energy, different energy sources that is not like the old way, and that everybody has it freely. Then if the food and energy is covered and everyone has shelter, then it's a matter of being of service. What are my gifts that I'd like to share? What do I truly need? And it's then everybody can ultimately get what it is they need, because they're coming from a place of being.
That's why I also knew that I have to work with human design and the gene key. So specifically when I was going into human design more, I got this, like, you can say, download, where I saw, oh gosh, I have to help everyone remember their role in the team. Because human design talks about the 5 types and the team, or how they play together as a team, so to speak. Which is also why human design is so powerful in actual teams, right? You need a reflector to reflect back to you what's the vibe of the team, right? What's the health of the team? And you need a manifestor to inform the team what we have to do to lead the ship, right? Then we need generators as a workforce to make sure that stuff is being built. And we need projectors to guide us also into the vision of the future. So it's all perfectly designed together, right? And we incarnate, so to speak, as one part of the team. So you are being a manifesting generator, so you need to work, but also your voice is really important while you work, and you work on many different projects at the same time. And I'm a projector, I'm here to guide. So for example, I could guide you into knowing, okay, not being too scattered, that's the silver lining of all of your different interests, It's don't get too lost into, and also don't think that you have to focus on one thing only, because that's what society tells you, or Tony Robbins has this one thing, one focus, not for you. Anyways, and that's when we see how, again, we are all a big team that creates this new earth together. And if we allow that to happen and we play our natural part in it, that you can see the energy you carry in your gene keys and your human design. And if you express that in the highest form, the whole team is running, right? Because if let's take a team, for a business, for example. If everyone, like the project manager, the marketing person, the kitchen person, they all try to do the same thing, well, then there is no one in the kitchen, no one taking care of marketing, and everyone is just focused on, I don't know, the financial department. So it's not working, you know? And that's basically how we live right now, where everyone tries to be in one part because we think we all have to do the same thing, right? And that's why that idea of synergy or of what you shared, you know, everyone brings something and then everything is kind of covered. It's not working right now, but that's where we want to go. And that's also the new earth, where everyone brings their own unique talents, and then all of a sudden everything is covered. You don't have to worry, you know?
Well, that's the trust thing, not needing this system to keep the illusion that we need to be part of it to survive.
Yeah.
So how do we dissolve that to then step into a place where we have a system that supports our being rather than a system that supports our doing? Because our doing is what propagates that illusion. So then letting go of the doer. And it's a process, because I'm saying, and we're still in this journey, and I've been doing for so long, just to be, which is madness.
It's a hard job.
It's madness. And I feel like it's setting that point where, you know, as my CEO yesterday said, aren't you exhausted of being exhausted? I'm like, yes.
Are you tired of trying to?
Yeah. And it's like, and I need to get to that place where I surrender. Like any addict, you know, the first step is admitting they're powerless. You know, it's just like I give up, or I surrender, or, you know, and that's when the higher power shows up. And I'm happy to be in that place of just surrendering, and I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. Like you said, it's already the cosmic poetry, and it's okay. I am where I'm supposed to be, and it's scary at times, you know, because it's suddenly, imagine, like the new earth was on my shoulders, you know, the Yeshua and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, but I feel so far away from that at times. And the only way I feel connected when I feel high is certain things that show up in my life, and I feel this expansion, and I feel light, and it's not, you know, I'm free from that burden, you know. But then suddenly the old parts are still showing up, and then it, you know, and I go the other way again. So it's this, you know, like a car trying to start rather than just, you know, going. So it is a part of the journey, like you shared yours. Just so I know, before we wrap this up, what is your Gene Key, and is there something else that you can share around that?
I mean, I mentioned a few Gene Keys already. 25 being my life's work and my vocation.
What was 25? That's
25 is the constriction.
constriction,
Constriction in the body and in the physical world, and just feeling really constricted.
Oh, that was actually your path that you were describing.
Yeah,
that is actually what it is.
It's my core wound and my vocation.
Wow.
So obviously my biggest challenge, but it describes, you know, through acceptance, I see universal love in everything. So I see the universe playing out in front of my eyes in everything. And yeah, it's a journey, you know. Sometimes I see it, sometimes not. And then I have to look and check and be like, wait, what are you not accepting right now? And as soon as you accept, it's like the floodgates are open. I'm like, oh gosh, thank you. You know?
What is the one thing you feel that you maybe are not accepting right now?
Oh gosh, time is a big thing. And limitations. You know, the ego, I would say, I'm just not happy with being limited, because it feels weird to me, because I know that we are unlimited, but then also knowing that in this realm we have some sort of limitations.
So is that why your lesson is to accept the limitations here in the physical form of how you chose this incarnation, but you're not accepting it?
Yeah.
So what would it take to accept that limit? What do you see as a limitation exactly?
I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, for example, that I can't just, right now at least, move myself to Bali in like
a dream.
2 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, or like blink of an eye. When I know that's actually possible. But I right now don't have that ability in this realm.
So you see that as a negative, of course. Otherwise it wouldn't be a limitation.
Yeah.
So what was the positive of that?
to be able to focus. You know, I explain it also with plant medicine.
No, it's in your limitation. You see it as a negative. I can't just be in another. So what is the positive aspect of that? Because you can't have a negative without a positive, right?
Yeah, that's what I said, like the focus, to be able to focus. That's what I say to people in plant medicine. You know, everyone wants to have psychic abilities and wants to be able to see the tree speak to them all the time. But I'm like, it's good that we don't have access to everything we are
All at
capable
once.
of at once, because you can't focus. So it's good that I have even that limited perception of Kathy right now. I see through her eyes, because if I would see like spirits through everyone's eyes at once, I mean, nothing makes sense. You don't have that unique perspective. So yeah, it's your unique perspective. So it's your unique point of view on things. You know, I could say it's a limitation that I can't see this state right now through you, through, you know, people here. It's like, no, I need my own focus, you know.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's like the Dharma that we have. It's we know it. Our higher selves know it, but we forget.
Yeah.
And the human is like suffering
Yeah.
because it thinks it's a limitation.
Yeah.
But like you said, well, if we could all at once, then that is the limitation in itself, because it's basically understand that we live in a world of duality here on Earth. That's the plane that we live in, and it's a matter of accepting it. And as Yeshua would say, surprised I'm saying this, of course, when you can make two become one, then you enter into the new Earth, into the kingdom of heaven. But it's that accepting that there is always going to be the other side, and accepting that we are both the saint and the sinner. We have the right, the wrong. When we bring that all into alignment and we become one, when we truly, fully comprehend that and we experience it in our totality, then we are ultimately free.
Yeah.
Because everybody has, like that Dharma, whatever that gene key is, there's always the opposite. And that's what we struggle with. When we make the two one, whatever gene key you have,
Fusion.
we're liberated. And it's interesting that yours is 25, right? And you have that because ultimately that constraint leads for you to see other people's constraints. And that's what makes you go,
And
that's
I
why
bring people to acceptance.
Yes.
That, you know, because it's without that, I mean, again, I would probably not be here anymore.
And that's
so I'm like, okay, I need to make this person accept and actually appreciate their limitations and their struggles.
Because that's your void, because of your, say, lack of appreciation is now, until basically it's like your Dharma, like for you to, I don't know, how many souls you need to have see it to then go, there you go, you've clicked, because maybe you weren't grateful back then, so you created negative karma, people would say, right? Or whatever it is, until you clean it up by serving as many people as you possibly can.
Guiding people back, you know, and it's part of also, it's not just my family, washing the cosmic laundry. Every client I attract, it's like, I know you, okay, I have to kind of clear that with you for many reasons, you know. So that's why they resonate with me so strongly, or why I resonate with them so strongly and can read them so well. It's usually because, you know, maybe there's a piece of karma you want to say that I need to clear for myself, but also for you. Like it's always, we needed to meet again. Let's just say energetically.
Absolutely. And this is part of your path, and it's accepting that, which you're doing so beautifully. So talking about the cosmic laundry, for those who looking to know their purpose and align to their genes, so that they can just see it and go, there's the one that now I can recognize it and be free from that constraint. How can they reach out to you? What's the process that people can work with you?
I love to connect with people very much directly. So everyone is welcome to pop into my DMs, as I like to say, MagicKathi official on Instagram. You can also email me if you want more privacy, but I usually love to talk, obviously, to people and also build a connection. And then whenever the person is ready for an initiation, then they can book in a reading. I usually combine astrology, gene keys, and human design together. And it's always very much, I say it's a breakthrough session because it truly is. You know, moments like that happen all the time. I still, you know, they're still so special for me, like when people cry. And just remember. And it's not just remembering, it's more acceptance. It's the best way, you know, because that's what all of these systems brought to me. It's this gosh, I can accept that I am the projector that I am. You know, I can accept that I have these flaws that I have. And I don't have to carry shame around it anymore. I can actually say, well, it's designed this way, you know.
Who
it's
am I
part
to,
of the plot.
Yeah, who am I to disagree with it?
Yeah.
You know, that we are divinely blessed, we are divinely guided, and we're worthy of love.
Yeah.
And for me, I know it's been hard to accept that. And for many people, it's, you know, to actually go, you know, to accept that means I am enough as I am. And that means if I can just get out of the way and just witness this, then we can all just witness this beautiful transformation that's taking place right now for humanity.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful thing that, you know, we get to collectively witness. Once we remove our doer and, you know, the victim and everything else that's sort of coming up to the surface right now, they're all getting our medicine, even if we like it or not.
I mean, honestly, already I feel like we live so much of the new earth because, I mean, when you were in your teenage years, or even me, you know, could you have thought about even having a conversation like that or meeting someone who would talk to you about all of that? Like, we've come so far, and sometimes we really forget. Where it's like, it's already here, actually, in a way. You know, maybe not completely done, but we can be so grateful that we have so many like-minded people now. You know, I wish I had those people when I was younger, when I felt like completely lost and no one understands me, right? Because now you're actually meeting these people. They're out there. Even my dad the other day said to me, I think we are all stardust. I'm like, wow, there's hope. You know?
Wow.
Like, yeah.
That's amazing. And thank goodness for the internet for that reason, you know, the positives of it.
True.
It's been absolutely a pleasure to have you here and for sharing, you know, so much of yourself. And I'm sure it resonates with so many people. It was wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me and provoking these answers out of me, because a lot of the things that I shared here, I've never really talked about, because being the projector that I am, without an invitation, I'm not going to share it, you know. But if you ask me, I'm an open book.
Thank you.
I'm always grateful when I have a good host that asks me the juicy questions.
Well, I just want people to connect with you in your soul,
Yeah.
you know, because like I'm a 5-1, so people project, right? We get projected, and rather than just actually just knowing who you are and what your journey is about, that people will then connect to your soul and just know that, you know, you're a human being having this experience, or spiritual being having a human experience, just as we all are. And what you're mirroring in the others, there's actually a reason why you're here that's far deeper than what we fully could truly comprehend. Yeah. So thank you for being you. Appreciate you.
Can I say one thing, because it just popped into my field about,
of course,
mirroring here? Because one thing in your gene keys also is very connected to you needing to speak about your emotional vulnerability and experience. And I just want to say that because that's what you do in the podcast with other people, right? It's like this opening a space for people to go like so deep emotionally, right? Because it's actually one of the things that you are meant to do too.
Thank you. I know I'm not mad. And this is unfolding. And you know, it's not like it needs to end in tears for it to be emotional. This was, like you said, the stuff you were sharing, you may have to put a protective mask over because you're on camera and sharing something that's quite vulnerable. So another part needed to come and protect you simultaneously. Yeah. This was a big step. So thank you. Thank you for entrusting.
Thank you.
And witnessing your gene keys again, doing its magic.
Again, always.
That's right, MagicKathi. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And of course, if you feel like this resonated, comment, subscribe. It's been wonderful to have you witness this.
Share and spread the love.
Share and spread the love. New Earth, we cannot do without you. In fact, we just need to move out the way and watch.
That's true.
So what is there? All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Much love. We vibe when you subscribe.